Today we're going to learn lesson 6.7 about interest. Interest is something that you will encounter in your lifetime. So interest is the money paid or earned for the use of money. Okay, now that might be confusing, but I'll give you an example in a second. The principal is the amount of money borrowed or deposited. Okay, so I'm buying a house right now. It's a true story. And I have to take a loan out from the bank for my mortgage. If you've ever heard the word mortgage, it's just a loan for the payment of your house. Okay, now my house costs $335,000, and as you can imagine, I am a teacher. I do not have $335,000 sitting in my bank account. Okay, so I have to take out a loan. And in order for a bank to give me that much money, they're going to charge me extra money, which is called interest, each month that I take to pay it back. Okay, so in this situation, the principal would be the $335,000. Okay, because that's the amount of money borrowed. That's how much money I have to borrow from the bank, because that's the price of my house. Okay, now interest is going to be, this is going to be like a 30-year loan. Okay, so I don't need to have this whole entire $335,000 paid back until 30 years from now. Okay, and this makes it more affordable for someone to buy a house and just make payments each month. Okay, so they break this price up and split it up into each month for 30 years, which would be 12 months a year times 30, 360 months. I have to make payments on this house loan. Okay. Now, since they borrowed me this money and it's going to take me this long to pay it back, they're going to charge me an amount of money each month for them to make a profit off of loaning me the money. Okay, so let's say that my payment each month is $2,000. Okay, but they're not going to make me pay $2,000. They're going to make me pay an interest percent. Okay, so that I'm maybe paying $2,200 a month. That way they're making $200 a month off of loaning me money. Okay, this is not something that you will have to deal with for a while. That's just one quick example of what a principal might mean and what the interest is. Okay, to give those definitions more context. So simple interest. Simple interest is money paid or earned only on the principal. So only on the money borrowed or deposited. We'll talk about deposits. That's like a bank account. But first we're going to break down the formula. Okay, here is our formula for simple interest. We will always use it. I equals P times R times T. Okay, so in this equation, I equals P times R times T. I is going to be the simple interest. Okay, so that's what the I is going to represent. That's going to be the amount of money you owe for that interest. Okay, the P is going to be the principal. This is the money borrowed or deposited. Okay, the R is the interest rate. Okay, so for my house, we have about a 4.5% interest rate. Okay, so of our monthly payments, we have to pay 4.5% of $2,000 added on to that $2,000 to get our monthly payment. Okay, kind of like this example I was talking about up here. So this is going to be the annual interest rate. Annual means 1 year. Okay. And we need this in decimal form in order to do the multiplication of the equation. Okay, so at this step, we would always have to convert that percent to a decimal in order to use it in our equation. Last but not least, that T is just the time. So the amount of time that you are doing this. Okay, this is the only equation we will ever use for this. Let's go on to some examples. Okay, so this one we're going to find the amount of interest earned. Okay, so you put $500 into a savings account. Let's say you had a birthday, graduation, something, and you are putting $500 into a savings account. Okay, the account earns 3% simple interest each year. That means that this bank is going to pay you to keep your money in their bank so that they can use it and whatnot. That's how banks make money. And it's going to earn 3% each year of that $500. Okay, so our first part is A. They want to know what is the interest earned after 3 years. Okay, our first step is always going to find out what is missing. Okay, because that is the part of this equation up here that we are going to leave as the letter. Okay, so in this equation we want to know the interest, which is going to be the I. Okay, so when I write this equation, I equals P times R times T. All right, I'm going to be given all the information besides this I, so I'm just going to leave the I a letter. Okay, the principal is the amount of money that I borrow or deposit. So I deposited $500. I'm going to multiply that by our rate. Now it's a 3% rate. What I need to do is move that decimal over twice to get, I'm going to use multiplication signs, 0.03, and then times the time, or the amount of years. Okay, this time is always, sorry, in years. I forgot to add that above. Okay. So the amount of years is 3 years. So in my calculator, I am going to take 500 times 0.03 times 3, and I'm going to get an interest amount of $45. Okay, so that means after these 3 years from depositing that $500, I'm going to have an extra $45 in there that the bank is paying me to have my money in there. Okay. Part B then just asks, what is your balance going to be? Okay, so we assume in this question, since it didn't say your original amount in the bank, that you had $0 before putting this in. Okay, so if we put in $500 and we earned $45, we would add those $2 amounts to notice that we now have $545 in that bank account. Let's do a different kind of example. Okay. So we want to find the annual interest rate. Okay, so again, the first thing we do is find out what's missing. So you put $1,000 into an account. The account earns $100 simple interest in 4 years. What is the annual interest rate? Okay, so when we look up to this equation, we have our I, we have our P, we are missing our annual interest rate. So we're missing the R. Okay, so when I have, interest rate, I have I equals P times R times T. That R is going to stay because I'm going to have a value for that. The R is going to stay in R because we don't know what that rate is. Okay, but we're going to plug in all the other values that we know. So the interest that we earned in dollars is $100. That simple interest is $100. So we're going to plug in that for our I. Our P, our principal, that's our money borrowed or money deposited. We put $1,000 into an account, so that's our P. So we're going to put 1,000 instead of writing that P. Now we don't know the R, so we're going to keep it in R. And T is time in years. 4 years tells us we're going to put a 4 where that T goes in the equation. Okay. Now we're going to simplify. There are 2 numbers that we can simplify on this side. 4 times 1,000. Okay, so we have 4,000 times R on this side and still 100 on this side. Now we want to get R by itself, so we're going to undo times 4,000 by dividing by 4,000. When we do that in our calculator, we get R is equal to 0.025. Okay. Interest rates are given in percents. Okay, so we need to make this decimal a percent by moving over the decimal 2 places, and we would get a final answer of 2.5%. Okay. Example 3 is going to be another kind of example. Again, we're going to first determine what is missing. A bank offers 3 savings accounts. The simple interest rate is determined by the principal. How long does it take an account with a principal of $800 to earn $100 in interest? Okay, so we are missing the time. They want to know how long does it take. Okay, we are always going to use the equation I equals P times R times T. We want $100 of interest, so instead of the I, we're going to write 100. The principal of 800. We don't know the rate, but we're going to use our visuals to figure out our rate. Okay, if we have $800, we need to find less than 500. That does not apply. More than 5,000. That does not apply. So we have a 2%. Oops, we're going to do this down here. 2% interest rate. We make that a decimal. So times 0.02 times time, because that is what we are missing. That is what we need to solve for. Okay. Again, we're going to simplify. We're going to take 800 and we are going to multiply it by 0.02, and we are going to get 16 times t equals 100. Again, we want to get t by itself, so we undo times 16 by dividing. We get t is equal to 16.25. Now the label on that is years, because it's always written in years. Okay, so it takes about 6 1/4 years to earn $100 of interest in this bank account. All right, we're going to do a last example. This example is going to be a little different because it has some extra steps that we need to take into account. Okay, we borrow $600. So that's how much we borrowed. That's our principal. The simple interest rate is 15%, so that's our R. You pay off the loan after 5 years, so that's our T. Okay, so when we look for what we're missing, we are missing our I, or our amount of interest in dollars. Okay, so we are going to do our equation. I equals P times R times T. We still don't know that I, so we leave it a letter. Our principal is 600. That's how much we borrowed. Our rate is 15%. We make that a decimal as 0.15 or 1500ths. And then our T is 5 years. All right, so we have an interest dollar amount of 600 times 0.15 times 5, which is 450. Okay, however, that does not ask the question. It does not ask for how much money you paid in interest. Okay, it asks for how much money total do you pay for the loan. So this is where I was talking about that house. Okay, so I'm not paying the bank back $335,000. I'm going to pay them a whole bunch more because they're loaning me this money, and I have to pay interest on each payment. Okay, so if my principal was 600, that's how much I borrowed, and my interest was 450. To find how much I in total paid for this violin, I would add them together. Okay, because this is the amount of money I borrowed plus the amount of money that they're going to make off of me. This is the interest. Okay, this is why banks loan people money to buy things. And we get $1,050. Okay, so instead of just buying that violin for $600, you're actually buying it for $1,050. Okay. Like I said, interest is definitely something that you will have to encounter when you are growing up. This is how credit cards make their money. Okay, because if you can't pay off your whole credit card bill, they will let you pay it back in payments, but they charge you interest. So this is why on all of my credit cards, I make sure not to spend enough on my credit cards so that I can pay in full the price of the bill every single month so that I'm not paying them extra money. Okay, that's how credit cards make money. That's also how you can easily go into debt. All right, so here we have 3 problems that I would like you to pause the video and try on your own, and then check your answers. three different kinds of problems, so make sure that you are finding what's missing or what the question is asking for first. All right, so please pause and work on those. All right, and then resume and we will go through the answers. So our equation is always going to be I equals P times R times T. So I'm just going to write that at the top for reference. We want to find out the simple interest for $600 at 5% for 2 years. So we are finding the simple interest, so we're missing the I. Okay, our principal is how much money we borrow or deposit, that's 600. Our rate is 5%, so we move that decimal over twice to make it a decimal, times 0.05 for 2 years. So in my calculator, I will take 600 times 0.05 times 2, and we will get the simple interest rate of $60. Okay, this is for part A. Part B then asks us to find the balance of the account after the interest. Okay, so we are going to add together our principal, how much money we put in, deposited at the beginning, which is 600, to our amount of interest, which is $60. Okay, so the amount after the interest in your account will be $660. Number 2, find the annual interest rate. Okay, so we are missing that R. So I'm going to have I equals P times R times T. My I is 24. My P is 400. My R I'm missing, and my T is 2 years. I can simplify this side by 400 times 2, which becomes 800 times R equals 24. Get rid of that times 800 by dividing by 800. We get R is equal to 24 divided by 800. The rate is 0.03. If Big Ideas asks you to make that a percent, that would become 3%. Kind of the same idea for 3, except for you're missing different information. So we're still going to use I equals P times R times T. Our I, our amount of interest in dollars, is 30. Our P, our principal, how much we deposited or borrowed, is 500. Our R is 3%. So I'm going to make that a 0.03. And we don't know the time. Okay, remember that this T is always in years. Okay, so our label for our answer will be years. So I'm going to simplify my right side, 500 times 0.03 to get 15 times T. Divide by 15. We get T is equal to 2 years. Okay. As always, if you have questions, you can raise your hand, record your questions at empty spaces on your paper to ask me later, or you can go back into any of the parts of the video to rewatch that example.